Hi, Todd here from Urban Sound Studio, and today I want to take you through some of my top workflow tips when using Console One mixing system. Let's dive on in. First up is to pull down your faders. I remember one time I was working on a mix on an analog console. My EQ was sounding good, the compression was sounding great, but the mix wasn't there. And then an engineer I highly admired walked in, grabbed all the faders, pulled them down, and started pushing them up until the mix came together and sounded perfect. What I learned from that is that you need to close your eyes, grab the faders, and use them musically. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. I'll start by pulling down the vocals and guitars to get a better balance of the bass and drums. Now, it is easier to bring up my guitars with their main fader and slowly bring up the vocals back to their correct level.
Take a little drop in the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning.
I'm going to solo my guitar. Due to haptic feedback on the faders, it is easy for me to feel the unity marker. And if my tracks clip while hitting the top, fader vibrates to give an indication of the clipping. With pan, I can of course use the knob, but if I prefer, I can use faders to control pan. Once again, haptic feedback gives us an indication of the center position. I switched over to Pro Tools, where once again I could control faders and pan. One thing I wanted to show is that by collapsing our folders to only our essential tracks, fader will automatically follow the DAW, which makes it very easy to balance folders for a more stem mix style workflow. You need to close your eyes, grab the faders, and use them musically. Saturate. Saturation can add character to your mix, but it can also tame transients and it could bring tracks together in a nice organic way. And Console One Channel gives you the ability to use both the tape preamp section as well as the drive after all the processing. The two together are super powerful. I am going to solo my drums. I will round off the transients with some tape, and then use output drive to add some additional harmonics to the kit. My bass doesn't cut on small speakers, so some tape drive helps it, while keeping the dynamic range under control. And our output drive tailors our tonality with some distortion. Now let's do the same for each of our guitars. Listen to how the mix gradually starts to come together without touching any other processing. Automate. It's so easy to just twist knobs and really focus on getting that perfect EQ cut or that perfect filter or even that perfect amount of drive that we forget to actually use tools like automation. So use Console One Fader and Console One Channel to provide some automation. Better yet, due to the haptic feedback on Console One Fader, we can feel discrete parameters like EQ settings. Let's see what I mean. We can hear that there is a change in the arrangement, but our guitars stay the same in terms of character. Let's make the mix more interesting. First, let me solo my guitars and pay attention to the source that we are working with. One of the guitars becomes more sustained, but that's not enough. I'll turn on the on-screen display. Let's focus on this one rhythm guitar. I'm going to select that guitar track, track 11. And let's do something simple, which is to set a high cut so that when we get to the new section, the sound opens up and gets bigger. That's going to be the move we're going to make. But rather than automate this via a knob, I am going to select parameter mode on fader and touch the high cut knob. Now I can automate that parameter in a much smoother and more linear way from the fader. First, since I'm in Pro Tools, I need to select the parameter I want to automate. So let's add filter high cut to make sure we write automation to that parameter. Then I'm going to set my automation mode to write the automation. Now if I switch over into my arrangement view in Pro Tools, I can see the automation I wrote. And if it wasn't perfect, I could either try it again or manually adjust the automation to fit our music perfectly. Now let's think about how else we can use parameter mode. For example, I can hold the parameter button and touch frequency. Now the fader can adjust frequency when automating. For this example, let's switch our EQ over to American Class A, which has stepped frequencies, rather than a smooth sweeping frequency. My fader not only controls the frequency, but haptic feedback also steps with the frequency to help us feel exactly where the frequency changes, which is essential when automating a parameter such as this. Automate sends. I know we already talked about automation, but let's not forget about our sends. With Console 1 fader and Console 1 channel, you're able to control up to 6 sends, so don't forget to automate them to benefit your mix.
Oh, take a little drop from the backseat and let's highway.
This vocal needs something to help the transitions into the chorus. I'll select my lead vocal and use 3 of my 6 sends to send to some different reverbs and delays. Let's put our automation on touch mode and automate the first send.
And oh, take a little drop from the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning. Take a drop from the backseat, endless highway.
Let's use send 2 to automate a different spot.
And oh, take a little drop from the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning. Take a drop from the backseat, endless highway.
Good, now for send 3, we're just going to catch the ends of the phrases.
And oh, take a little drop from the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning. Take a drop from the backseat, endless highway.
Now if we look at our send automation lanes, we can see where we wrote our send levels. And if we open up our 3 sends, we can see that they automate in real time with our fader unit during playback.
Oh, take a little drop from the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning. Take a drop from the backseat, endless highway. Got my feet on the gas now, fast now, headlights burning.
Use favorites to work quickly. Favorites mode allows you to customize Console 1 mixing system so that it works for you. Let's take a look at some places that I might use favorites. I'm going to hit favorites for a few key tracks such as my bass, kick, and 2 snare mics. Now, by holding Shift and hitting Favorites, we can concentrate on the balance between these 4 tracks. And switching back and forth to our full mix mode is as easy as holding Shift and hitting Favorites again. Group tracks. Maybe you're working on some stereo guitars. Group them together and process them at the same time. Or if you have a snare drum with a top and a bottom mic, group them together and affect them with the same EQ to maintain a proper phase relationship. I have a few guitars solo. Hold Group and select each one. I am going to change my EQ across all of them to American Class A. Now let's make some changes to all of them at once. Let's add a little compression. And a second compressor to help smooth them out. Then let's add a little drive and use our sustain from the shape section to bring a little fuller sound. And let's turn on the tape section to round out our sound on the input. Now let's remove some of that low-mid buildup. Okay, now that we have a basic sound, let's make more specific adjustments to each track by selecting any of the guitars. I personally like to make these next adjustments by adding one guitar at a time and do it blind by not letting the visual of the EQ curves influence my decision. Groups are a quick way to get initial sounds set up, and for me, it makes the workflow faster when I start making my final individual tweaks to elements in the mix. Use compact mode when you're focusing on stem mixes or only need to process certain tracks. I'm here in Ableton Live, and I'm going to search Console 1 to add the VST3 instance to the tracks I want to control. Let's put it on my vocals, guitars, bass, and drums. Now, our on-screen display and fader screens show a ton of blank space. But I want to focus only on the 4 tracks where I inserted the plugin. It's kind of inconvenient. Well, this is where compact mode comes into the rescue. By holding Shift plus compact, we now collapse our entire Console 1 session to only the tracks where the plugin is inserted. And now we can focus on mixing and processing only the tracks that have the plugin inserted. Thanks for watching. Are you using Console 1 channel or Console 1 fader in your workflow? What are some of the tips that you can recommend to people? Please leave them in the chat below. And as always, please help support this channel by liking the video and hitting subscribe.